Welcome and happy Father's Day to all of the sailing dads out there in the sailing world. You're here today on Father's Day in New Zealand and Australia. Father's Day, New Zealand and Australia, not technically Father's Day in America, but you're here with Suellen, hi, and Allison, Gator, over there, and my dad, Ken. And Gator, introduce your dads.
So right here is my dad, Tim. Tim, say hi.
Hi there, how are you?
And my stepdad, Eric.
Hello all.
And my dad, Ken, who doesn't really need much of an introduction in the sailing world, quite a vocal character. How are you today, Father? You good?
Oh, lovely Father's Day. I've got my Father's Day card from Kerry, right?
From your wife?
This is, yeah. And it says, "Forgive me for all my sins." Kerry.
So before we get really into this, I just want to say, this is completely unscripted. We've got a couple of questions that we're going to ask our dads, but we apologize in advance for anything that gets out of hand. It's a hot mess. We did a little practice run beforehand. We're all talking over the top of each other, but hey, it's Father's Day, and I don't think there's no such thing as like a calm day on Father's Day, is there really? It's always chaotic.
Always.
Always chaotic. And Sunday is a sailing day anyway, so I guess our dads have always had to deal with some kind of sailing on Father's Day. But yeah, just want to sort of get into it. I'll start off with my dad. Dad, why did you decide that sailing was going to be my sport? Why sailing?
Well, it was really an evolution, not a decision. You know, I always wanted to build a boat because I helped my father build boats. And when you turned 4, I decided that I'd build you a sabo. And that's how you started, Sue. And you used to sail with your brother in the Clarence River in Grafton. And that was the beginning. It was the proudest moment of my life to see you and Simon sailing together.
But you launched the boat in the pool.
In
so
the
you
pool,
launched
yeah.
We launched the boat in the pool. It was quite cool. Hey, but then you built one sabo. That was great, but that wasn't enough. You had to build a highly illegal carbon fiber sabo.
That's right. We went straight to the highest technical thing we could do in the world, and we built a carbon fiber sabo, which is very similar to an Optimist, those people in Optimist land, and it weighed 6 kilos, which was only about 20 kilos underweight. And it was great to see Simon walking around these rigging lawns with this, just holding on like it was a purse, you know.
Wherever I could put it on my shoulder and carry it down the hill to go sailing.
But we never sailed it in anything competitive. It finished up, I sold it to a cotton farmer out west for his grandson, and his grandson sailed it on a cotton dam west of Gundawindi. That's where it finished up.
Pretty cool.
That's it.
Well, we had some similar, you know, kind of situations growing up. So I've been sailing with both of my dads for my whole entire life. I've been very lucky. They're both very, very involved in sailing. So I don't know. Would you guys say I really had a choice in the matter, or how did that start?
No, you didn't have much of a choice. I remember very distinctly sailing between Newport and Block Island on your mom and I's Islander 30 when Whitney was with us, and your mother was pregnant with you and throwing up like crazy. But no, you from the time you were a zygote, you were a sailor.
Yeah.
No choice. Yeah.
No choice. So my stepdad, Eric, has been in my life since I was very, very young. Him and my mom got married in 2005. So dating a while before that. So what's your first memory of, well, my sister, I guess we'll go back a little bit, is about 15 months older than me. And so we grew up sailing together as well with you guys. So Inky, what is your take on when we first started sailing?
Well, you guys were barely walking, I think, but it was back in the days where we could barely afford a babysitter, so the kids always went with us, I think. And it was a good way to keep an eye on you and just kind of share what your mother and I always love to do in our recreational time. And the passion we had for the sport is bring the kids along and acclimate them at an early age where they didn't have a decision. So it all worked out really good, and I'm glad it evolved that way.
Well, Whitney and Allison both did a number of Queen's Cups, which is a race between Milwaukee across Lake Michigan to the other side to Muskegon. And they started doing those races when they were about 3. And both Whitney and Allison both did their first Chicago to Mackinac races when they were 10. So they've been racing for a long, long time.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think either of us had a choice, really, did we?
No, I think you're about 5 when you did your first race. 6 maybe. Yeah, I was very disappointed you didn't win your first race, but anyway, that's the way it goes.
And the disappointment has just continued.
You needed to have room for improvement. You can't start at the top. You need to leave a little cushion.
Well, we lied about Whitney and Allison's ages when we registered them for their first Opti courses on Pewaukee Lake, because I think, Allison, you were probably 6, and I think you had to be at least 8. So yeah, they're 8 and 9. Yeah, they're just no problem. Yeah, just enter them in the course.
They're
off
just
we
small.
go.
Right.
They're just small.
Dad, I remember the days when you were building Victus in the backyard, the 32-foot racing cat, the Tony Granger.
8 meters, Sue.
8 or however long. Look, I was a kid. That's, I remember it being 32 feet. I don't know.
I wanted it to be 32 feet, but it only finished up 8 meters.
8 meters. There you go. Well, you build a racing cat in the backyard. And it was, how would you compare it to boats that are around now? Like, would you compare it to like a GB cat?
No, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I remember one day we had the masthead kite up and we were coming up the river from Mulmara and we're sitting on 26 knots, and that was probably the best day sail I ever had on it. Yeah, that day was just incredible. We did a race from Grafton to Maclean and back again. It was an overnight race and we did it in 4 hours and 47 minutes.
Was that the bridge to Breakers, or was that the bridge to bridge?
Bridge to bridge and return. Right,
okay.
It was for trailable yachts, right? They don't have it anymore, but yeah, no, that was the funnest thing I ever had. And when I went sailing with you and Simon on it, that was even better. So I think I remember coming back from Elmira one day with you steering, and I was just laying on the front net, and we went out 4 or 5 knots, and it was just beautiful. But anyway,
I haven't let go of the helm ever since.
No, but yeah, you're always a good steerer. Yeah.
Captain Araldite.
I've got a cute little story I can share about Gator's first boat. I think it happened on her 6th birthday, where we set up her first Optimus dinghy in her father's in Tim's front yard, and then we pulled into the driveway with Gator, and here's the sailboat set up, and she saw it for the first time, and it's probably about a month before sailing season, and the rest is history there. Remember that, Tim?
I sure do. So, Eric, how old were Whitney and Allison when they did their first double-handed race on the J30? I think they were 15 and 16.
Gee whiz. Well, Allison might remember better than I, but it might have been 2012 or 2013. Going back to that race, Tim mentioned the Queen's Cup, a trans Michigan race from Milwaukee to Muskegon, about 80 miles, where somehow Gator and her older sister talked me into letting them sail our J30 across the lake double-handed. at probably age, what, 14 and 15 or
Yeah, I think
15
yeah,
and
I think it
16.
was
And
like
it just
15
happened to
and
that.
16. Yeah.
It took a couple of weeks to talk us into it, but on that particular day, the day of the start, it was blowing about 35 knots, which made things very interesting. But I think they had a great finish and darn near won the whole thing. It ended up in second place or something. Allison, is that right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
A fun
it was
race.
so dramatic. Yeah, it was so windy.
Yeah. So those are certainly some good memories.
Yeah.
All of our friends were asking us if they were capable of doing this, and we said, well, we're about to find out.
Right.
Yeah, we ran into a little bit of a predicament in the pre-start. Our main bolt rope got jammed in the mast, and we're like, right, we'll just call our parents for help, but we couldn't because they were all racing. And they had all started, and they're already out in the water. So they really led us to it. But we made it. We survived. It was the first of many.
Yeah. That was a cool one.
Yeah. So I mean, sailing is basically dictated most of our lives, I think. I mean, it has for me. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I ended up in New Zealand. But I'm going to ask Tim and Eric this question, and then Gator's probably going to ask my dad. Tim and Kent, when Gator said to you, hey, I'm going to pack up and move to New Zealand, how did you guys take that news?
Well, I found out when I called Allison up and I said, what do you want for your college graduation present? And she said, without any hesitation, I want a ticket to New Zealand. And I said, what for? She said, well, New Zealand's where all the good sailors are supposed to be, and I want to be a good sailor, so that's where I want to go. And I thought it sounded like a perfectly plausible idea to me, so I didn't have an objection to it.
Yeah.
Eric?
That was my thinking too, Tim. You know, at first I thought, well, she'll just buzz down there for a month or two and then, you know, come on home and, you know, do whatever a college graduation grad does. But it's evolved in, you know, 4.5, 5 years later. And I think fortunately, Allison met some nice people and got off on the right foot and having a great time down there. It's just a great opportunity, and I think she's learning from some great sailors, and she's in with some good people, and we miss her terribly, but you know, New Zealand has been a great experience for her.
Well, I talked to Moose Sanderson about her moving there, and the one thing he said was, you know, Tim, if she moves to New Zealand for a summer, she's never coming home. And I said, yeah, not impossible. And he was right.
Oops. Well, what about you, Ken? What was your initial reaction when Suellen told you she was coming over here?
Well, a mix of respect, pride, and sadness, but she was having some issues where she was working at the yacht club, our yacht club, and I knew she had to do something, and she had some holidays, and I think she went to Chicago, a club in Victoria, and Royal Acorona, and she came home after visiting the club at Royal Acorona and securing employment there, and she said, I'm going back to New Zealand, Dad. Well, I thought like everybody else, oh, she'd be back in 3 months, you know, and now it's been 2 years since I've seen her, and it's tough. It's tough on her mum, it's tough on me, but if it wasn't for COVID, we'd be probably seeing each other 3 or 4 times a year, and it's sad.
But it's sad, also happy, Dad. It's also happy because I'm happy here in New Zealand.
Yeah, I know that, Sue. That's the part of this that's worries me. You know, they beat us at rugby every year. You know, They win at the ballroom dancing, sailing. They win at everything, you know. And so I'd say pride, happiness, and sadness all in one breath. But very, very proud, Sue. Very
Well, that's
proud.
nice to hear. Well, I mean, yes, just speaking out, the last time that I got to see my mum and dad actually is thanks to one of our sponsors, actually Doyle Sales, because they sent me over to Sydney before the 2019 Rolex Sydney Hobart to do some interviews and some photos of all the Doyle Sales boats. And we took the opportunity to surprise mum and dad, and I jumped up on a plane and went from Sydney up to Brisbane, and yeah, completely surprised my parents. They had absolutely no idea that I was going up to Brisbane. My sister-in-law knew, so she had to keep me in hiding, even from my brother, and surprise them on Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas!
I'm your present.
So yeah, I mean, that was great to be able to do that. But yeah, I mean, obviously COVID has sort of all cut off our opportunities to get around the world, and who knows when I'm going to be able to get back to Brisbane, but hopefully not in the too distant future. I mean, as everyone knows, we're in lockdown here in Auckland at level 4, which means that we just have to stay at home, work from home, and only essential workers are allowed out. So we were enjoying watching, you know, we were enjoying all these great freedoms of being in level 1, and while the rest of the world was locked down and everyone was watching us and when all of our sailing, and now it's the other way around. And I tell you what, it sucks watching from the sidelines. I mean, yesterday we were meant to be out for the Shorthanded Sailing Association of New Zealand's Lumar Triple Series, the final race, but that got cancelled, and there's going to be a few other cancellations coming, I think, as well. Oh, well.
Just on that, Sue, I sent you an email about this, but last Monday morning at 10 o'clock, I cancelled the Australian Laser Championships, which were going to be held in Fremantle, Western Australia. And that's the about the third event that I've been involved in the cancellation, not totally involved, but because we're a committee and we make our decisions as a committee. But I know our nationals, a lot of kids look forward to going to the nationals, meeting up with old friends. And now for 2 years, we haven't had our Australian championships. And it's sad. It is. It's a big hole in the calendar of the year. Each district in Australia, which is all the states, are all trying to do a little event that they can do in their thing. But I can tell you now, Sue, we're very close to going back into lockdown again in Brisbane and Queensland, which is sad. But I think we've got to start learning to live with this COVID-19 thing. Don't know how to do that, but get vaccinated, wear a mask. But
okay, we're not turning this political, Ken.
Okay, no politics. But
one thing I will say is, you know, there's probably a reason that we're so, I don't know if adventurous is the right word, but, you know, not a lot of people pick up and leave, you know, the comfort of their own home country. And I think it probably comes from you guys raising us and giving us these opportunities. I mean, what kind of sailing, you know, you guys have done and what you've instilled in us is probably the reason that we took off in the first place. So we're not really to blame here.
No, you're not. Your first visit. Your first visit to New Zealand was when I was there for the Around Alone race.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
so
right.
You know, you set the example. So just tell us a little bit about that race and why I chose New Zealand in the first place.
Well, I did the Around Alone race in 2002, 2003. The bow number on my boat was 981 because Whitney was 9 and Allison was 8, and they were going to be 1 year older when the race was over. So I was carrying them with me all the way around the world.
Oh my God, that's so sweet.
Allison, well, I have to say that shout out to Sherry and Eric, because they made sure that Allison and Whitney made it to the stopovers in both Cape Town and in New Zealand. And it is not easy to get to either one of those countries, but they were able to come there and be part of the race and meet all of the wonderful people that were involved in that event. Bernard Stam and Terry Dubois and Brad Van Loo and the organizers and everyone around it. And they sort of soak in the whole vibe of an international event with race villages all around the world. And it seems to have had some resonance because Allison went back.
Yep.
It is a pretty good country over here. I guess the thing that you guys need to know is that we are both extremely happy here in New Zealand and making a living from sailing. So I guess the big thing is that we have our dads to thank for that.
Well, and Eric was in New Zealand as well, right, Eric?
It sure was, yeah. I remember that. I think I had my 50th birthday or something like that, working on the boat, getting you ready for the start of the leg. Yeah. And yeah, so we got to see a good part of the country. I think after your leg started, we took another week off and went south and went north, and just had a marvelous experience, enjoyable stay in New Zealand.
Well, when Suellen was little, and what we used to do, we used to drive from Grafton to Sydney, which was about 8 hours drive south. We'd do one heat of the state championships in the Manly Junior. Then we'd fly to Christchurch, I think it was, wasn't it, Sue? Christchurch in New Zealand. We'd go skiing for a week, and then we'd fly back to Sydney and do the second round of the state championships.
We went to Queenstown.
I think I think I seeded the snow with that, because we don't get snow in Queensland. That's those cold places to get that. But they're the sorts of things we used to do, and it was nothing for us to jump in an airplane, go to Disneyland, America or England or wherever. And but our trip to skiing in South Island, New Zealand the place is so beautiful, and I can understand how you could get hooked there. It is a lovely, beautiful country with absolutely wonderful people in it. I could sit here all day. The people that I've met in New Zealand, they think, I don't want to start talking too much. I'd like to know where the dads come from. Where did you all come from? How did you get to where you are? Have a children, and how did you get to where you are?
Well, I actually met Gator's mom on a CNC 41 that I was racing, and the two of us actually bought that boat many years later, and Sherry and Eric wound up with it. So Sherry and I have been sailing since literally the day we met, and the girls just came with us when Sherry and I bought a 30-foot boat, and they came with us on that. And then we bought a 37-footer, and they came with us on that. And then we bought the 41, and they were with us for every race. And then we enrolled them in classes, and they started sailing small boats. We got hooked into the dinghy racing scene and driving them all over. We just loved the sport, and they came with us. They were part and parcel.
Yeah.
Eric, I remember when you had that little sunfish, and
right.
Whitney and Allison took that thing out sailing. The two of them, they're barely big enough to sail it, and you put both of them on the boat, and we pushed them off the dock, and off they went. Yeah,
I think I remember that. Good memories back on that old sunfish. When I was growing up, 8, 9, 10 years old, I sailed a sunfish, and I still have one to the day. But I remember getting that old boat out when the kids were like 8 and 9 years old, Tim, and they were sailing around the harbor with that thing.
Yeah.
having a ball.
I loved
Nikki,
it.
I remember a story you told me when you were a kid on was it a sunfish or a laser up in Green Bay when your mom told you couldn't sail across the bay, but you did anyway?
Yeah, something like that. I'd spend about 8 hours a day just sailing the sunfish around, and the body of water I was born and raised on is called the Bay of Green Bay. It's about 15 miles wide and 40 miles long. But this one particular day, I decided to sail pretty much across the bay, and I forgot about a dental appointment I had like about 2 in the afternoon. And my mother's calling the harbor master. Have you seen Inky? And, where is he? And well, nobody knew where I was. So my mother went, our neighbor had an airplane, a Cessna, and they just, they flew over by Chambers Island, which is about 12 miles away, and they found me. They kind of circled down low, and I can remember my mother sticking her hand out the door and screaming, "Get home right now. What are you doing out here? You've just missed a dental appointment." So
That's brilliant.
yeah, it was a lot of fun, but I got in trouble for doing that.
When I was a kid, my dad used to push me out and say, "Don't come back till you know how to tack properly."
Right. But let's swing back to the how I met your mum and where I met your mum. I was a 17-year-old with a surfboard under my arm, and I met Kerry at a place called Cronulla Point, and it was a great right-hander, and that's how we met. And then she was only about 16. I was about 17 and a half because I just got my driver's license. And after the army in 69, I came home and we sat and had a talk about life in general, and we decided to get married. And she rushed me to the church in 1970, and we got married in the Elephant House at Cronulla, and we've had, is it 52 years, Kerry? 52 years in May. Coming up.
Wow.
And it's been 52 years of, we've had our ups and downs, but we've been in business, out of business, back in business again. And, met some great people. And really, we've had an incredible journey. If you look back at the journey was, we were married 10 years before we had Suellen, and we were told we couldn't have any children. Then out of nowhere came this little beautiful girl that I didn't know how to touch or pick up or what to do, because I thought I'd break her. Not realising in that little body was this little hard-ass sailor that can do anything. And I think that's where they're the things I remember about Suellen and a brother is just, I'm a bit sentimental, but I'm really a sentimental guy, aren't I, Sue? Sentimental?
Yes, you wear your heart on your sleeve, and that's where I get it from.
But that's a little bit of our life, and it's been a lovely journey. We've had our moments, we've had our sicknesses and things, and but we got to where we are. I'm 74 and Kerry's 35.
Well done.
Lovely card today for Father's Day, which is I showed you before.
Okay, before you embarrass me anymore, Dad, that's lovely.
It is lovely.
That is lovely. I guess one of the big conversations that happens in sailing is how do you keep the young sailors in the sport, once they've sort of finished high school and once they've done that, and especially like women and your daughters and the girls in sport, and how you get them to stay in sailing. We're still sailing after, I'm not going to say how many years I've been sailing, but lots of decades. What do you think it was that you guys did to sort of make sure that we did stay in sailing, and kind of maybe like what advice would you give to the next generation of fathers, you know, who do want their kids, you know, their sons, but especially their daughters, to stay in the sport? Like, what's the magic formula?
Okay, the magic formula. Can I start? Do you want me to start?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're starting.
Magic formula is unnecessary pressure from parents, peers, and coaches. If we could bring back the pleasure of sailing instead of the stress of sailing, people would never leave when they're 18. They'd stay in it. That's my short version of what I'd like to say.
First of all, I agree with you 100%. And actually, Gator's older sister runs a youth sailing organization, and boy, those people have a lot of fun, and she makes sure that it's fun for them. And the other thing, and I've thought about this a lot, both Whitney and Allison grew up on keelboats. So they sailed big boats from the time they were very, very young. And then they sailed dinghies, and they sailed dinghies all the way through college. But when they were done with college, they never stopped sailing because they'd been sailing on big boats all along. And I think getting younger kids and the junior programs that do a good job of getting kids onto bigger boats, so that they get the skills, so that they're in demand, I think it helps a lot. And Suellen, you asked a question about women in sailing. It never occurred to us that there was a problem with getting women involved in sailing until the girls were a little older, because our club they had a women's racing series, and it was an extremely inclusive place for the girls to grow up.
That's right, Tim. I totally agree with everything you said. You know, if I look back at, you know, how I stated it and how I think Whitney and Allison stated it, we always made it a family thing. You know, it's just something we always did as a family. And we also got the kids involved on doing things, crew positions, just as they were old enough to coil lines or fold sails. And we campaigned that Mom 36 for 4 or 5 years. The kids had very important roles in that, and they were very active, and their jobs and positions were just as important as anyone else's. And you know, when we had the success, it just built on everything, and you know, one thing leads to the next, and it was a good environment, and you know, just a good team sport, which is, and you know, women in sailing, Tim, I think half of our crew on the Mum of 8 people were women, just about every time. Matter of fact, the first thing I did when I bought the boat is I got a new toilet that worked, because I knew that women were going to have to, you know,
Yeah.
And they did as good a job as anybody. I mean, you know, we had fun and did well, and we just had good dynamics, and they got a lot of respect for it too. So,
well, the CNC 41 that Sherry and I met on, my crew was half women all the time, because they would show up and they'd stick around afterwards and clean the boat up. But it was it never be a problem. It is a problem in the sport. I think certainly where, you know, Eric, where you and Sherry and Whitney and Allison and I grew up, it wasn't a problem.
right.
So, Dad, you've been the volunteer sailing coach of Moreton Bay College girls sailing team for 19 years now. I mean, how do you keep the girls, you know, in the sport, you know, after they do finish school, and, you know, how many of them have stayed into it and sort of gone on to keep sailing?
Look, it's a hard question to answer, but 20 years at Moreton Bay College has learnt me lots of things about young women. They all want to explore. They want to see things. They want to do things. But what we got to try and explain them to everybody that's new to our sport is the lessons that can be learned from our sport about being part of a team, about having individual responsibilities. And in part of this, you've got to make it the enjoyment of being involved. Now, you get a bunch of girls together, you're going to get 2 or 3 of these ones and 2 or 3 of those ones. Some are extremely hard to work with, but they're all got great character. And I don't think what they say about there's women that come into the sport. I think they are, just like boys are coming to the sport, but all of a sudden they're the flavour of the month. You know, they got planned programs in Australia called She Sails, or whatever they want to call it, and it's really a bit tacky. I think the girls are going to be there, the boys are going to be there. Let's take the pressure out of it. Let them enjoy it and stay in the sport forever, for their whole lives.
I think that's a really interesting thing because, I mean, I prefer to be just a sailor as opposed to being a female sailor as such. I mean, Gator, you've never been a female.
You've always been just a sailor, Sue. That's how I've always looked at you.
Yeah. And Gator, you've sailed, you sail in competitive match racing teams and teams with mixed crews. Like for you, I get it. Yeah, question for you. I mean, your kind of sailing and how you do you think that there's lots of encouragement for women out there, but we've just got to find more opportunities?
It's a tough one because of how I grew up. I don't think we realized that it was a problem because it wasn't a problem for us in our local sailing scene. We were taken seriously just as sailors because of the way that these guys raised us, and we sailed on boats that Inky owned, and he managed the crew and he skippered, and he didn't treat us any differently than he treated the rest of the crew. So we were expected to coil the lines. We were expected to do all of the things that, like, even though it's our family boat, you just don't get away with not doing things. So when we did go to other boats that weren't our family boat, we already had that instilled in us. And so we were just taken seriously. So I think once we kind of grew up a little bit, got into some more competitive sailing, is when my sister and I probably stumbled upon this as a issue in the larger sailing world. Because of the way we grew up and who we grew up around, shelter is not the right word. I think just our community sailing, it wasn't a problem. People were just took you, like you said, as a sailor. But I do, it is definitely an issue. And I think you just need to have the attitude that you're just a sailor. You're not just a sailor, but you're just as good as the guy next to you or the girl next to you, and you need to. It doesn't matter who you are. You have to work to get there, and you have to take criticism. You have to realize that you're not the best, and you have to work to be the best and learn from people around you and everything like that. So it's tricky. It's really tricky. And I think, my sister, she's always done the boat work. So she's always been the one that's in the shed doing the nitty gritty stuff. She knows all of that kind of stuff. And people really respect her for doing that. And so I've never, it was hard coming out of our local community where everyone was equal. But having these skills instilled in us kind of keeps us at that level, but you do have to keep pushing. You can't really get pushed around because people will try to push you around.
Yeah. Well, let's get away from that conversation because that could go down a big rabbit hole. Tim, You're doing some pretty exciting sailing at the moment. Why don't you tell us about what's going on in your world of sailing?
Yes. Well, when my solo racing career came to a screeching halt when I lost my boat and 18 years ago in the Bermuda 1-2 race, I decided I want to get back in the solo and shorthanded racing game. The last fall, I bought a Class 40. And my goal with that project was to create opportunities for Gator and Whitney and I to do double-handed racing together. So we're trying to put together the boats. I did the Bermuda 1-2 with it this year. And we're trying to find other opportunities for the three of us to sail together, to do some transoceanic racing as soon as possible. As soon as Gator gets released from jail.
Yep, I'd love to be up there.
A phenomenal boat, and boy, is it fun to sail. And it's been a lot of fun. And we're going to do a lot more sailing on it this winter.
Nice. And you've actually a bit of a celebrity this week in the sailing world. You were on Sailing Illustrated's live show earlier this week, and then here you are on ours.
It's amazing. I feel like a little bit of a very, very, very small rock star. I think more like part of the shore crew for the rock stars.
And how about you, Eric? What are you up to in the sailing world?
Well, gee whiz, I'm a yacht broker by trade, so I keep pretty busy here in the summer on Lake Michigan and stuff. With all the activity kind of condensed in a 4 or 5 month time frame. But earlier this year, I sold a friend of mine a TP52 this year, and we did a little, distance type sailing on that boat. That was just a ball. Had a lot of fun sailing that boat, and locally, my wife Sherry and another person, we sail the Etchells 22 when we want to go out and just do some local racing. And then I end up sailing with clients, and we try to go day sailing and cruising when we can, and that kind of stuff. So we lately just here on Lake Michigan, sailing with clients and our own little program here, and day sailing. So
who's the boat captain? 52, Eric?
I'm sorry, what's Tim?
Who's the boat captain on that TP52?
He assigned me as the helmsman on it, which I liked a lot. We had a crew from a 43 footer in the past, and we had about the same nine or 10 guys. So it was a real easy transition with the same people and the dynamics and that kind of stuff. And our big race here in Lake Michigan is the Chicago Mackinac race, and we've got about 6 or 7 of these TP52. So it was a lot of fun going head to head with some of the big guys, and
And Whitney's on that boat as well.
Yep, Allison's sister Whitney is the crew chief, as a matter of fact, and she does actually quite a bit of work on that boat as well. So she's engaged and busy on that program, and we had a ball sailing it this summer. We really did. So that was a lot of fun.
You guys beat up on some of the professional TP guys on the Queen's Cup, didn't you?
Well, we did. We had some good boat speed and good boat handling and stuff, but with a distance race and stuff, we get a little leverage one way or the other, kind of outsmart people and stuff like that. I think we did. We beat a couple of boats like that, and that was a lot of fun. But yeah, you're going up against some pretty high rollers and equipment and unlimited budgets and stuff like that. So just to beat a couple of them was a real victory for us. A lot of fun.
Yeah, awesome.
Definitely.
What about you, Ken? What are you up to at the moment? What would you be up to at the moment if you weren't in lockdown?
This Monday, as I said, I've got sailing with the school, but I'm just coming to the back end of 2 knee replacements. That's full replacements. And I got back into laser with one knee replacement up at I had both of them done at Mission Beach. And my biggest thrill was I finished every race, which is, I've never won a cube. And you people that know about lasers, I've never won a cube. They call me Cubulus down in Victoria.
Oh, that's so mean.
Yeah, but look, that's the way it goes. But yeah, Cubulus Ken, they call me.
Can't you do something? You're the president of the Australian Laser Class Association. Can you not just go get one?
No. No, I can't do that, Sue. But I'll get one day. I'm just about to hit the legends, 75-year-olds as the legends. I've got about 7 months to go, and I'm actually starting to get my stuff, hit my health together, and doing a bit of walking, and I hope to be back sailing this summer. That's if COVID lets us. But I'm going to do the Nationals down in Victoria, which from me here is about 3-day drive, 2.5, 3-day drive. And we're going to be sailing on Western Port Bay, which hosts a seal colony and some quite large white sharks, which I'm told they're friendly. Just don't go near them, and I'm planning not to go anywhere near them. So, but a beautiful piece of Australia we're going to, and it'll be lovely.
Sharks don't like knee reconstructions. They prefer real knees, not fake knees.
No.
You're safe.
I hope that's, Ken, you and I have that in common. I have 2 replacement knees as well.
Going okay?
And I can tell you that you can race a class 40 offshore for 1,500 miles. Doesn't bother you.
I hope so. You just got them replaced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this the part of the conversation where we start talking about our ailments and injuries?
I've got this little problem with my back.
Ken, how do you do all that hiking in a laser with a couple of bad knees? That must be a tough one.
They're not too bad. It's the problem I got is getting in the boat and keeping the mast pointing to the heavens. But hiking, when I'm hiking, it's lovely. Yeah. So yeah, I'll get back. I've got to get back. I miss so many friends that you go out there and race against. It's a social event more than.
Yeah, I'm sure it keeps you young. Good luck with that. Yeah,
fantastic.
Definitely.
Listen, if I could just say one thing about an incident that happened with one of my girls at school that I hadn't heard from her for about 5 or 6 years, and out of the blue she rang me up and she said, "Oh, Ken, I just rang to tell you I'm getting married this Saturday." And I said, "Oh yeah, okay, that's good. That's good. Remember, it's a partnership. It's give and take and all that." And she said, "What I really rang you up for was to say to you, Ken, my best memories of high school was being out on the bay sailing with you and the girls." And I just about collapsed when she told me that, because I didn't realise the impression that I was making on these girls. And I've got doctors, lawyers, engineers and hairdressers and mums and housewives now after 20 years. And sometimes just a little call like that to a volunteer can really humble them. And that was one thing that happened to me. So, and that was a kind thing for her to do and a wonderful thing for her to do.
Well, Dad, actually, one of your former sailors, a graduate of your Moreton Bay College sailing program, has chimed in and watched this and says hi, and that's Bianca. Bianca Cable.
Hello, PJ.
Yeah, no, that's a pretty cool story.
So just thought I'd throw in that, because we're nearly near the end, aren't we, Sue?
Yeah, we're nearly at the end.
So that's my final thing. Yeah. Lovely, beautiful people, beautiful environment, and we should never stop.
Well, I think that's probably a really good way to sort of wrap these things up. Actually, Dad, I just need to read this out from BJ. She's not alone, Coach Ken. We all loved our days out in the bay with you. My favorite memories, and with me. So that's really nice. That's really nice to hear that stuff.
You'll have me sort of coming to tears in a minute, Sue, so you better go.
I told you, I get my heart on my sleeve thanks to you. But look, I mean, look, there's heaps of stuff going on in the world, but I mean, just, you know, it is Father's Day. Obviously, we wanted to get our fathers here together. So just for those that have just sort of tuned in, Tim Kent is Gator's biological dad, and then her stepdad, Eric. These guys are both in America. And then my dad, Ken, who is in Brisbane in Australia, and their favorite, well, sorry, I can say dad's favorite daughter.
Yeah. I don't think Whitney's watching right now. She's gonna watch the recording. So
well, then their favorite daughter. We're in New Zealand, and it's sort of like this technology is so great. We can sort of bring everyone together, you know. So we're in 4 different time zones, you know, to bring this chat for Father's Day. But I just want to say, like, a massive, you know, happy Father's Day to all of the sailing dads out there. There are so many passionate sailing dads that get their kids into sailing, help rig their boats, probably tinker around with their boats too much. Hands off, dads. The kids have got it. They know how to rig. They know how to de-rig. Do the fine tuning when we go get changed so that we don't have to see.
Wash the boat down, pack it up, and let's go home. Yeah.
Yeah. But I just want to say, yeah, massive thanks to all the fathers, and also, of course, all to the mums out there as well, for getting your kids into sailing and keeping them in sailing. It is the best sport in the world. It's the motto we live by. We live, we sail, and one day we're not going to be here, but the, you know, sailing will always live on. And I think that's the most important thing. But yeah, so that's our Father's Day chat. But before we do go, we also
Thanks, everybody.
Before we go, we do also need to do a massive thanks to all of those people that support Live Sail Die, because without them we wouldn't be here. And that is Predict Wind, B&G, PIC Insurance Brokers, Doyle Sales, Marine Concierge, Busfield Marine Brokers, Grandit.Kiwi, Yacht Share, Hyundai New Zealand, and a massive shout out as well to the Royal Akurana Yacht Club, Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron, the Short-Handed Sailing Association of New Zealand, the Stuart 34s, and the Young 88s for keeping us busy. And of course, the Coastal Classic, which fingers crossed goes ahead in October. We really hope that the PIC Coastal Classic can go ahead this year here in New Zealand, because we will be chatting about the sailing at the start. And that's it.
Thank you, Suellen.
I need a drink now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thanks guys. Well, best of luck with the rest of the day.
Yep. We go now.
No, you just stay, Dad. But that's it for the Facebook Live chat. Thank you to everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. We have no idea who we're going to be chatting to next, but I'm sure something will come up. But yeah, thanks everybody, and thanks to our dads, and we'll probably see you soon. Wave, Dad.
Okay.